Hello and welcome to Organizational Change Management for Durham staff. I'm Steve Prentice. You may already know me from the previous courses, either online or in person, talking about change management and a number of other concepts around people and work and technology. This is a two-segment course that will teach you everything you need to know about this specific area called organizational change management. So let's see where we're coming from to begin with here. If you've been learning about change and change management through Durham, you probably have done so through live courses or perhaps the online course that we prepared, as well as the change management for Durham staff and or the change management for leaders courses that we deliver. So this one here is the sort of the end point of this, focusing on a specific area called organizational change management. You'll see some overlap, of course, with the previous courses because we're all dealing with change, but you will also see the perspective as to how this differs and how all this together creates an excellent package for you to know how to manage change from all kinds of perspectives. So the best way to do this is to tell a story. That's how the best learning happens, is through stories rather than through theory. So I'm going to tell you a story here. We're going to talk about a company which is called the Steve Corporation. I couldn't imagine a better name for a company. And this is a company that is a mid-sized manufacturing company with about 500 employees. This is a company that has been using traditional manual processes and somewhat outdated software to manage its operations, frankly. So management, including myself, have decided to enhance efficiency and to stay competitive in the marketplace by implementing a new and comprehensive enterprise resource planning ERP system. Okay, so some of you may be familiar with an ERP system, but basically we're talking about a system that just looks at a lot of the features that make the organization run and plan to do them better. So in this case, our ERP has been sold to us as something that will streamline operations, improve data accuracy, and facilitate better decision making, all the kinds of things that we're really looking to do here. So everything sounds pretty good. So when we are taking this on, we've got a couple of things to look at. One of them is going to be regular change management. And the other one is going to be organizational change management, the reason for this course. So let's compare the two. We are now changing the way this system works inside our organization. So traditional change management, the kind you would have taken in the previous course, is going to focus on the employees, preparing and supporting employees for the transition from the old ways of doing things through to this new ERP system. So we're focusing on them. We have a change management team who understands what's involved, again, grief and sorrow and resistance and negativity, but also perhaps enthusiasm and willing embrace of the change based on exposure, understanding, and training, of course. So the change management team for the Steve Corporation understands that we need to involve our people in this change. They have to learn new processes, new habits and roles. And this team is going to focus on addressing the individual and team level impacts of the change in order to, again, minimize resistance and to encourage adoption and make sure it works. Okay, that's traditional change management. So on top of that, we also need to have the organizational change management component. And what we're looking at here is the efforts to ensure that this new ERP system's implementation is not seen as a standalone project, but as a strategic initiative, an undertaking that is going to align with the company's vision and objectives. Now, there's a lot of corporate buzzwords there, but bottom line, we're talking about creating something that is going to work with the company as a whole, above and beyond the employees, who are very important, of course, but the entire encapsulation of what this organization stands for and what it does. So you can sort of describe this then as a framework, organizational change, as a framework for managing the effect of new business processes like this ERP. Changes in organizational structure, so whether again it's technology or the way in which the management or power structure is organized, or just simply how people are employed and deployed through the organization, or cultural changes within that enterprise as well. So it's all about enterprise level stuff. When any of us are working on individual projects, you could think about an individual project as part of the life of an organization And so thereby comparing organizational change to regular change, you can say, for example, that change management, as per the yellow circle inside this big circle, is one thing, one undertaking that applies to individual projects or teams. And a current example that I could use here would be if you were to change one of the floors in your building to a hot desking floor, a place where people can book a desk for however long they need it, like they would book a hotel room or a seat on a plane. It's yours for the time you use it, and then you give it up for somebody else. So if we were deciding to, as many companies are doing now, change one floor or one area of your building to hot desking, then that would be a project that requires some change management that focuses on how people are going to respond to this particular thing's undertaking. There'd be some project management involved as well, of course, some logistics making this happen correctly, but it's also going to be looking at how this applies to individuals and teams, their responses, their comfort level, their reactions, and hopefully their embracing of this new approach. But on a larger scale, from an organizational change scale, this notion of building a hot desking environment is applying to the organization as a hybrid workplace, right? It's one thing, one of many things we're taking on in changing the culture to one in which hybrid workplaces are embraced, encouraged, and deployed. So this floor would be a project. The people affected by this floor would be a change management project, but the organizational change would be shifting of a mindset and also the physical presence of an organization from a collection of buildings to a more hybrid and distributed working environment, not only in terms of using technologies to connect, but also hiring, onboarding, training, and supportive staff in a new and much less structured, but hopefully equally productive or more productive environment that doesn't have walls. So that would be sort of the Venn diagram version, if you'd like, of this. So you've got sort of one circle inside another. In this story, in our Steve Corporation story, the change management component of our ERP project is going to support employees directly. Some of the things that are going to be required to do this will be an understanding stakeholders. You know, who's involved here? What are the stakeholders? Who are the people who would be stakeholders? Department heads, team leaders, frontline employees. These are people who would be directly affected by the ERP implementation of this case study. We also want to look at communication, creating a communication plan to keep all the stakeholders informed about upcoming changes, progress, reasons behind the decision, and the benefits of the new system. And remember, stakeholders aren't simply those at the top who have a financial vested interest in the outcome. We're talking about everybody who is affected by this project, employees, maybe even neighbors, you know, corporate neighbors, the people living in the next a neighborhood or around you or in competing or neighboring businesses. They can all be stakeholders. We want to look at training and skill development as well, giving employees comprehensive training and opportunities on company time on how to use the ERP system effectively, having tailored training sessions that are customized for different departments, different job roles, different levels of seniority, perhaps, to ensure that relevance and applicability of this training and, of course, their use of their ability to use this new ERP approach. You could use the same example with regards to password management software or any other kind of technology that we are using as we change the culture organizationally into a new organization, new world, if you like. We also want to be able to address concerns, change resistance, fear, all those things that we discussed in the preliminary course. But yeah, we want to ensure that this is built in because people aren't going to embrace things as readily as we'd like them to do because they have their own reasons for handling change their own way. This change management area might also support employees by having a pilot test, you know, a pilot project of some sort, maybe having a one zone use this new technology before the entire group does, to give people a chance to experience it, to try it out, to make mistakes as well, and to learn in a pilot approach before we roll out the entire thing. There may be some tailoring required in this ERP as well. So it's good to do a prototype or a pilot test to ensure that this does actually fit before we drop it in wholesale. And of course, you can't manage what you can't measure. As I say a number of times, you want to have monitoring in terms of post-implementation. You want to see how the change team continues to observe and record the adoption and usage of this new ERP system, providing ongoing support and assistance to employees as they need it to help them adjust to this new technology. It isn't a one-off thing. It is a path, an iterative path of learning. This is all part of the change management approach to our ERP deployment. Compare this then to what we would see in the organizational change management side of this. Organizational change management is going to take a broader view, looking at how the changes in this organizational system will support the culture, or the culture itself will support the changes. Okay, there's two things going on here, one after the other or before the other, dealing with the organization as a whole and its response to the change. So we need to have a clear vision and strategy and make sure that this change is aligning with the existing clear vision and strategy, or changing it to become the new future state of the organization. So remember, terms like vision and strategy are ethereal concepts and not so much specific facts as the vision of where this company or this organization stands, what it stands for, what it does, how it does it, and why it does it. So we may want to have within our organizational change management strategy here, a confirmation that this fits the existing and well-proven vision and strategy, or if that needs to be modified accordingly. Again, think about our secondary example here of breaking up the workplace into a hybrid environment with distributed teams. Does this fit the vision of what we stand for in specific areas like DEI, but also in larger scale areas such as the kind of work we do to support our customer base, being the general public? Secondly, we want to talk about leadership alignment. Is the leadership team aligned on this need for a change? So are they in agreement? Do they support and champion the implementation, in this case, of our ERP situation? So this again fits into much larger scale than the physical ERP itself. Is leadership on board with this? Are there problems? Are there concerns? Are there gaps that they have observed here that need to be fixed? Thirdly, and equally, we need to have a cultural assessment of the company or organization's existing culture to look at any barriers that might hinder the adoption of this. I mean, these may be cultural barriers, union-specific issues, just things that stand in the way of this deployment and the existing culture of the people that we support as our team, as our employees. Are there going to be any changes to the organizational structure that need to be done here in terms of again, changes of departments, of power structures, of reporting systems, which department reports to whom, how employees are deployed, what they do? Where are the changes to the organizational structure? Will there be layoffs? Will there be hirings? Will there be changes of jobs? These can come down to some specifics, but it still sits in this large parabola of the culture of the organization in terms of the people in here. Similarly, do we need to redesign any processes about how we do what we do to align them with the metrics and the capabilities of this ERP system? I mean, are there changes that need to be made in addition to the implementation of this new system? What would they be, and how would they be refit in order, again, for all of this to support the larger scale concept of the organization? And as always, metrics comes into this because, once again, you cannot manage what you cannot measure. So what performance metrics do we have? What key performance indicators, KPIs, can we identify and determine to measure the success of this ERP deployment at the Steve Corporation? What is its overall impact on the corporation's performance? Is it improving things? Is it making more money for us? Is it saving money? What is the impact of this new technology on our corporation? Once again, you can translate this directly into the technologies we're using today in the workplace. Do they fit? What is their impact on our population and on our stakeholders / customers? Is this from a larger organizational scale helping or hurting? And how do we know? How can you measure this? How can you understand? How can we understand what this is doing for us? So once again, I just want to come back to our fried egg image, if you'd like, here, because but with a little bit of a change here. We're just, again, comparing the two as one of the best ways of understanding what organizational change management is all about. Within change management of a specific project, employees should feel supported and feel well prepared for the transition. Okay, so we're really getting people ready for a specific change of habits. Their concerns are being addressed. We're looking to help them adopt this as easily and as comfortably as possible with minimal resistance, but not by suppressing resistance, but by acknowledging it, understanding, and working through it. From an organizational standpoint, we want to make sure that the ERP implementation to our corporation is not a standalone project, but is seen as part of an initiative that grows and supports the company's vision and objectives overall. Promoting a culture of adaptability and embracing change brought about by this new technology. So again, bigger view, bigger vision is what we're looking at here. So, to continue to compare these, a few more things. I mean, you can read them as easily as I, but just want to identify a few things. You can kind of see the pattern going on here. In change management, regular change management, the scope is a project, an individual project with planning, communication, training, and stakeholder engagement, as you might expect. Whereas with organizational change, the scope is bigger, larger, and addresses the human side of change more deeply, going beyond individual project level activities. The same thing applies when we're defining who our stakeholders are. Regular change management is going to support stakeholders who are visually directly impacted by the change in a particular project, whereas organizationally, a much larger range of stakeholders, including those not involved in any one project, executives, managers, employees, external partners, vendors, customers, the public, the media, all of these would be larger scale stakeholders for organizational change. And as you might expect, duration also is going to be different. Let me just move myself out of the way here for a second. In terms of time frames. So generally speaking, change management is dealing with a change of a habit that is project-based and has a specific timeline that is aligned with this project, where organizational change management is more of a continuum, since the organization continues to change and modify as part of its life. That's part of what the living, breathing thing called an organization happens to be. We need to have alignment. We need to make sure that all of the groups within an organization are aligned on this concept of making this change from X to Y. Much of this we have already mentioned, but just wanted to highlight it specifically here. We've got the executive level, stakeholder level, employee level, and also physical alignment. Tools, technologies, processes that are able to support this change or be modified in order to do that. So 3 of them are human. The 4th one is sort of procedural, mechanical, and physical. But all of these things need to be aligned in order to get a change to work. The difference, again, being that all of this could apply to a specific project, a specific change. But looking more broadly, it should be able to apply to everything throughout the entire organizational body, because other challenges or other projects are going to come along, and we want to ensure that the same level of comfort and communication and collaboration can be made available to all of them. So this is the larger scale cultural side. Moving on from that, a couple of other things that we want to add. There is terminology, again, that I want to share with you in terms of the difference between organizational development and organizational change. Okay, so a new term coming in. Organizational development is often considered to be how we do things now, and how can we do them better. Okay, so we want to develop the organization, improve it. It could be the stepping stone, the beginning of an organizational change or a specific change. How did we used to do them? How can we do them better? The organizational change side of that, and even size of that, if you will, is how are we going to make this change? How are we going to make sure that the people side of our organization evolves with this technology change? So bigger and broader. I've chosen to use the example of a typewriter to illustrate this point. Because if you think about it, there was a time when people used typewriters all the time. That was the key mechanical device for printing, information or just getting stuff out on paper, literally. So why did we change from that? As computers came along, you look at how typing was done, its speed, its efficiency, its effectiveness. As computers came into the world that were able to do word processing, was that an improvement? How do we do what we do? Can it be done better? And yes, indeed, there are things, and there still are things in word processing applications that can do the preparation of words much more effectively. And indeed, we can go one step further with AI-based text-to-speech software. Things can now be dictated, transcribed, or even written through AI. Is that going to help us do the things we need to do better? So what can we choose to improve? What should we keep? What should we choose to improve or change? And how can we do our work better? Typewriters, typewriting, and just the preparation of text-based material is just one small example, but hopefully a visual mnemonic to remember. It's how do we do things now? How can we do them better? That's what organizational development is. And then how we're going to put that into the change in our culture becomes the organizational change management approach. Boy, we've been through a lot over the last few years. And I mean, one of them, of course, was the whole masking thing. In the workplace, social distancing, all of these things, which seem to, the pandemic peak was 2020 through 2021, but you never know what the future will hold. I hate to sort of have to say that, but, we did have some change processes in terms of how we interacted with others in the workplace. Just like we spoke about in the change management course, change is not only when something starts, it's also when something else stops, the way we used to do things. And there's a lot of grief that comes from saying goodbye to the way we used to do things. Now we're looking to do these things in a new way. Can we define these changes? Can we give clear understanding of these things? Can we look at what is staying the same and is not changing? These are elements of the emotional side of change management that we talked about in the previous course, but it also applies to roles and technologies, missions and mandates of departments, the future state of our organization, the changes of jobs. Go back to our typewriter for a moment. The person who did the typing doesn't necessarily have to be fired now that there's no more typewriters. This person can now learn how to do word processing, how to do document assembly, how to do text-to-speech, how to work with AI and text generation through AI. This individual whose skills are centrally about preparing words and text for consumption can still apply those skills in new areas through ongoing change that is both physical change, but is also organizational as a department moves into a new world where things are much more enhanced by AI and also by just the never-ending amount of communication that we can do. It's a concept, it's a philosophical approach to communicating that is then reflected down to specific things like using Zoom or Teams in place of in-room meetings in order to achieve the same goal, right, of education or communication or collaboration amongst many people at the same time, but using different approaches. So specific projects will change this. The organizational mindset will embrace it for the entire department.